Okay, today I'm going to clean my sewing machine. I have a Juki TL2010Q, and I'm going to clean it. I just ran my last bobbin out, and I usually clean and change my needle all at the same time. So I'm going to walk you through how I do it. Okay, so the first thing that I do is I go ahead and I take my bobbin out. Now this one's completely pulled out of my machine. Mine's recessed in a table. You open it up, you reach under here, and you pull it out, and then take the bobbin out of it. Now, I use a long paintbrush to clean my machine, and I'm also going to clean the bobbin. Just going to go down in there, make sure there's no fuzzies left from my thread. Then I'm going to set the bobbin aside, and I'm going to take my brush, get you where you can see it. And I'm going to slide down in here, and I'm going to try to gather up all of the thread that has accumulated, thread, dust bunnies, fabric, whatever's left that has accumulated in my machine since the last time I cleaned it. And then I'm also going to take my brush, and I'm going to go down inside the machine in the spot where the bobbin sits. And I'm just going to gently run the brush around there and get that out. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my presser foot. And I'm going to remove that plate down there. It's called a throat plate or a needle plate. This is the presser foot. You just take your screwdriver and unscrew that screw. Move the presser foot out of your way. I'm going to screw the screw back in a little bit so it won't fall out. Nothing worse than losing something that's essential before you can get your machine put back together. They are not easy to come by. You have to buy them from the dealer. And I use my screwdriver to do this. The other thing that works really well on a machine that has a metal bobbin is you can use your metal bobbin to loosen that screw once you have it broken free with the screwdriver. Because that screwdriver, even though it's small, is tough to get down in there. And I have arthritis in my hands, so it's a little tougher for me than it is for some people to undo that. I need the extra oomph from the screwdriver today. But you just unscrew the screw, and after a minute or so, it'll be where you can get it out with just your finger. I'm going to push down on the plate, bend it, then I'm going to lift the plate out gently. You can go ahead and remove the needle now, or you can do like I'm doing and wait until you get further down in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull the rest of the fuzzies out of my machine. You can see that they're coming out. Get down in among your feet. All the fuzzies around the mechanical stuff. It's probably got a real name. I just call it fuzzies. As you can see, I'm just making sure that I brush it all out of there. You get a brush with your machine in the accessory kit. They work okay. I like this one better because I feel like it gets into more spots. Okay. So I think we've got all the fuzz out of there. I do not use a vacuum on my machine because I'm afraid I'll vacuum up something that I need to have in there. I also don't like compressed air in sewing machines because compressed air has some, see, all the fuzzies I'm getting? Compressed air has some moisture in it. I don't want moisture down in underneath my machine. And the fact that this is a long-handled paintbrush lets me get all the way back up under there and get as much of that stuff out as possible. Now you don't need to keep this. I just wanted to show you what was in my machine. And my machine gets used 2 to 3 hours a day usually. So you do accumulate quite a bit of thread and other things down in there. Alright, and I'm moving my thread out of my needle. I'm not completely unthreading my machine because I like to pull the thread through instead of doing that. But I do try to get all the stuff off of there that I can. Alright, now that you've got that all done, the next step is going to be to oil your machine. And I oil my machine at specific spots. I'll take you up here and show you. Right here in front of the bobbin winder, there's a spot that gets a couple of drops of oil every time I oil it. There. Over here, that actually is right above your needle, so it needs oil. And then right there, where your pressure foot tension is, it needs oil. Down here, I put a couple of drops of oil there, and there, and then right over here. There's one more spot that needs a drop of oil, and I usually do that while I've got the needle plate off. And you're going to go right down in here where your bobbin hook is, and you're just going to put 1 drop of oil on that bobbin hook. 1 drop, just 1, because that's all you need there. Okay. Now that's all cleaned and that's all oiled. I'm going to put my plate back on here. Notice that my screws are still sitting on my plate. And I'm going to start them. If you ever want to hear your Juki sound like a machine gun, don't screw these screws down all the way. It's very scary when you do that. And I'm going to put them in as far as I can with just my finger. And then I'm going to close it, and I am going to screw that screw down tightly. They kind of need to be done evenly, but once you get them most of the way down in there, you can go ahead and do the final tightening. But you need to make sure that it's tightened down, but you're not trying to wrench it down like it's a car part. That's not necessary. Matter of fact, that might break your needle or hurt your machine, so don't do that. Okay, so now that I've got everything oiled, I am going to change my needle. But before I change my needle, I want to distribute that oil that's down in there. So you need to put your presser foot down. Then you need to go through here, and I need to give it some more thread because that's not enough. And I'm going through the hook back behind here, put my presser foot down, and then thread my machine. And then thread my machine. Okay. And I'm going to put the presser foot back on. This little bit of sewing is literally just to spread the oil out. So I don't necessarily want to get oil on a new needle. So we'll put it on this old one. Again, I'm going to use my screwdriver to make sure that the presser foot is on there all the way. Tighten it down a little bit more. Okay. And then I'm just going to go up and down a couple times. There's no bobbin thread in here yet because I haven't wound any bobbins. But that helps to distribute that oil throughout there. And now I'm going to run a bobbin for my machine. So give me just a second to get set up for that, and I'll bring you back. Okay, so what I've done is I have run my bobbin thread around that, and it comes over here. I've got it sitting inside my bobbin, and my bobbin winder is locked in. And I'm going to start it, and then I'm going to snip that little thread off there on the top and let the bobbin winder go ahead and wind a bobbin. And here we go. It's pretty quick on this machine to wind the bobbin. And it automatically stops when it's done, which is why I'm letting it run on camera. Okay, bobbin winder has finished. I'm going to go ahead and snip that thread and remove the bobbin from up there. Now, here's how we get a bobbin loaded. Here's my full bobbin. Here's my clean bobbin, my full thread bobbin, and here's the bobbin holder that goes on the machine. I'm going to put it in so the thread is coming off this way, making sure you can see that through the camera. I'm going to set it in here, and then I'm going to take the thread, and you should be able to see that notch right there. I'm pulling the thread into that notch and then under that one. And then the way I load it into the machine is I open this. That keeps the bobbin locked in there so it won't fall out. And then I'm going to make sure that the thread is over so that it's not going to go in between the bobbin holder and the machine. And I'm going to set it into the hole it belongs in, which is almost impossible to film, but you can feel it with your fingers when you get down in there. This hole in the bobbin goes over the hole in the bobbin race inside your machine. And when you get it where you want it to be, you'll be able to fill it. I have to shift a little bit here. Of course, I can't do it because I'm on camera. So you're going to reach down in here, and you're going to put the bobbin into the position where it belongs. I've pushed mine all the way in with my thumb, and then I close the little handle and make sure that the bobbin is pushed all the way in. I'm going to take my top thread, and I'm going to turn that needle a couple of times so it catches the bottom thread for me. Turn it a couple times so it catches the bottom thread for me. Lift it up. Okay, so I'm going to turn my needle a couple of times till it brings up that bobbin thread. Notice I put the presser foot down to do that. Now if the bobbin thread is up, I'm just going to take, doesn't have to be a pair of scissors, that's just what I happen to have sitting right here. And now, before I do anything on any important project, I'm going to take a piece of scrap fabric and I'm going to sew a little spot. This does a couple of things. It gets my threader started, and it also distributes the oil I just put down in there. Also lets me know if everything is threaded properly. Looks like it's good, but I'm going to do a few more stitches. There we go. No, there we don't go. Okay, now everything's threaded properly. My tension looks to be good for that. I don't normally sew just 2 pieces of fabric together unless I'm doing piecing work. But that is how you clean and oil your Juki machine. And then, see if you can still see while I turn that off. Yeah. All right. The last thing we want to do here is we want to take our needle out. And there's a little screw over here to the right-hand side. Now you're supposed to change your needle every 8 hours of sewing. And this one has been pretty beat up, as you can tell. Get it up in there. So I'm going to put a new needle in. And that was a heavier duty needle because I was doing some heavier duty sewing on some things. And what I'm using to put the new needle in today is I'm going to put in 116. It's an organ needle from Organ Needle Company. And there is the breakdown HLX5. It's 100 by 16. These are the machines that are recommended, or the needles that are recommended for these machines by Juki. And they come in this beautiful little packaging. The whole point of this packaging is to keep everything from rusting. So I'm going to close the sides, close the top, make sure all those needles are down inside there. And I put all my needles right back into the package that they came out of. I live in Florida where humidity is very, very high. So I try to keep everything inside a sealed up Ziploc bag. I do have Schmetz needles that I use for my machine as well. But if I'm going to be quilting, and I know that I am, I use the organ needles and the heavier duty ones. Now, there is a flat side on this needle and a rounded side. On the Juki, and this question gets asked all the time. Oh, I've got my needle in, but my machine doesn't want to work right, or my needle won't go in. It's because the flat part needs to go on the right. Okay, and I'm going to put this in here, making sure my flat part stays on the right. There is a needle holder that some people use for this. I don't normally use one, but I probably should. Move that down out of my way. Checking that my right side is on the right. Set my needle in here. Get it up in the hole. And of course, if you try to put it in the wrong way, it won't go in there. All right. So now it's I need to push it all the way up in there. Make sure it's tight. I don't move my finger very far until I know that it's in there. And then I'm going to use my little screwdriver again. Screwdriver's so handy. And I'm going to tighten it fairly tight. Now we can turn the machine back on. You definitely don't want that machine on while you're trying to thread it or chain it, while you're trying to put a needle in. And then up. I want to get that needle to its highest position. I'm going to thread my needle. Easy, easy. See? Okay.